Now before we calculate our confidence interval, we also need a t-score. And the t-score, as always, will be based upon alpha over 2 and the degrees of freedom. Now the degrees of freedom for comparing two means, or the difference between two means, is going to be n1 plus n2 minus 2. So in our case, the degrees of freedom would have been 14 plus 11 minus 2, which is 23. You'll recognize that as the denominator of the last calculation I did. I just lost the cap to my pen, so, oh, there it is. Alright, so we're using two variables, and so that's why it's sort of like a minus 2 on the degrees of freedom instead of minus 1. It provides the adjustment that we need to use the chart in the back of the book correctly. Alright, so I have 23 degrees of freedom, and of course alpha again was 0.05, so I divide that by 2, I get 0.025 comma 23 degrees of freedom. Alright, so let's look up that t-score. And the t-chart on page 650, I think. Page 650. 23 degrees of freedom. I'll come down the page and go across to 0.025, and I am seeing 2.07. 2.07. So, T is 2.07. Alright, let me erase that, and then we'll do the final calculation for the estimating the difference between the two means. On page 251, it gives the formula, and here's how I'm going to write it. Mu belongs to the range of values, bracket, and I have x bar 1 equals to minus x bar 2 minus the t-score associated with alpha over 2 comma degrees of freedom times the square root of 1 over n1 plus 1 over n2 comma, and then x bar 1 minus x bar 2 plus t alpha over 2 degrees of freedom times the square root 1 over n1 plus 1 over n2. Alright, I just noticed something, and I don't want to go back and re-record this video on this point. I noticed that for some silly reason I use Greek letter mu's up here, so I hope you caught that. Mu w is supposed to be x bar w, the mean, the sample mean for winter, and mu s should have been x bar s for the mean for the summer class. So my mistake. I properly, because they were sample means, I should have been using x bars instead of mu's. I think I still had the percentage problems on my head while I was writing mu's, so sorry about that. Hope that didn't cause a whole lot of confusion. So let's correct those. We'll correct these. And it's a big calculation. Here is the margin of error, and this is the difference of two means. So when I plug the numbers in, mu, and I see I've forgotten something too. I have forgotten to put s in the calculation, so sorry, one other little error. It's a little late tonight for me, so we have s in here. So please correct your formula. Someday I'll just re-record this video and it'll look real smooth. But I have the t-score times s times the square root, t-score times s times the square root. So please fix your formula, if you've written this down, to have S multiplying in between those. Alright, so the population mean difference is, bracket, x bar 1 will be, I'm going to use this as my first, 81.0 minus 77.2 minus the t-score, which was 2.07, times S, which was 13.64, times the square root of 1 over 14 plus 1 over 11. Those were sample sizes. Comma. And then it's going to be 81.0 minus 77.2 plus all that stuff, which is the margin of error. So rather than write this again. Alright, let me clean up my board a little bit. This should look like an 11 here. 1 over 14 plus 1 over 11. You got that? Okay, so it's another complicated calculation. I'm going to add these together and take the square root first. So 1 divided by 14 plus 1 divided by 11, hit equal. Thank goodness for calculators. I get 0.16. I raise it to the half power, or take the square root. I get 0.40 something. Now I'm using all the decimals on my calculator, by the way. So I have 0.40291148 on my calculator. And now I multiply by these numbers times 13.64 times 2.07 and hit equal. I have the margin of error is 11. I'm going to use 11.4 this time. It's 11.4 is the margin of error. So I got to make room, don't I? Let me erase this middle formula here. Mu belongs to, now this subtraction will be what, 3.8? 3.8 minus 11.4, comma, 3.8 plus 11.4, so the margin of error was 11.4. I need to erase the big calculation.